We've been talking about President Obama and the shot he has really fired across the bow of Wall Street. Either you're with us or you are against us here when it comes to establishing the new rules on Wall Street. Alan Blinder you're looking at now. He's the former Fed vice chairman. He's also a professor at Princeton University. He's been vocal about this, saying that we could be nearing the end of the road when it comes to financial reform, but it's too early to declare a victory just yet. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us here this morning.
Glad to be here.
I was reading your editorial here in the Wall Street Journal that you penned, and some really interesting observations here. You think the president did well yesterday, but you are very critical of Senator Chris Dodd's bill here. I want to read to our viewers and to our listeners a quote here, because I love the way you put this. Very creative. You said, "What's in the current Senate bill? I'll tell you if you promise not to laugh. Mr. Dodd grafted the head of a pig and the tail of a donkey onto the body of a camel." What do you mean by that?
So that was specifically referring to what happened to this idea of a consumer financial protection agency. An idea that's been bandied about for a while, was very clearly embodied in the House bill, the Barney Frank bill that passed the House. When it came to the Senate, it got all kinds of objections from the Republicans. And poor Senator Dodd, in order to get it out of committee, had to craft some kind of a weird compromise. And what they did is they sort of put it inside the Fed and they sort of didn't. If you read the bill, it establishes a bureau inside the Fed, but then says that that bureau is headed by an independent presidential appointee that does not report up the line in the Fed. So it is and it isn't in the Fed. And nobody that I've talked to has any idea how this could work.
But you like what Barney Frank is proposing here.
I do. I think the way to compromise the two bills on that is to go back to the Frank proposal. I should say, by the way, Margaret, I'm not critical of the whole Dodd bill. I think the bill is a quite good bill. It's this provision that I think is, strange.
The three things that you highlight here that you think need to be focused in on more than they are by both bills, you say that when it comes to consumer protection front, you need to look at the level of independence, the mission of the agency itself, and then exemptions. Really, what's not disclosed here as to who may not have to comply with these regulations.
Right. Exactly. What I meant to do there is give a scorecard for people to watch as the legislative horse trading goes on. On this, the Frank bill gives more independence to the CFPA, the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. The Dodd bill, we think, gives less. Exceptions are in both rules, and those are the kinds of things that sometimes come in the dark of night. Are we going to exempt use car dealer financing? Are we going to exempt pawnbrokers? Are we going to exempt payday lenders? And it goes on and on and on. And the basic principle for the consumer, I think, is the fewer exemptions, the better.
George Soros had an interesting observation out there today when he was talking about regulation of derivatives. He says derivatives traded on exchanges should be registered as a class. Tailor-made derivatives should be registered individually. Do you agree with him?
I do, very much. And I would add, the regulatory structure should push as much of the derivative trading as possible. That will not be 100%, but as much as possible onto organized exchanges, I think.
But swaps trading shouldn't be spun off, as Senator Lincoln would like.
One might make an exception. There's an allowance in the Lincoln bill, as I understand it, for, I think you're referring to foreign exchange swaps. Every derivative can be called a swap, and you don't want to just exempt swaps. The question is, what classes, what categories of derivatives do you want to leave off exchanges?
All right. Well, we have to leave it there. Professor, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. Alan Blinder joining us this morning.